Our one-on-one with LSU mega booster Gordon McKernan on all the craziness of the last week and a half. You got to hear it. Locked on LSU. Here we go.
You are Locked On LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. We're free, available wherever you get podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well. So please subscribe as always. One of the fastest ways to help us grow is by leaving your comments below. So thank you sincerely for that. And as always, thanks to everyone who's watching us on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network, available every Monday through Friday. Had a chance to sit down with LSU mega booster Gordon McKernan. Now, if you live in and around the Baton Rouge area, or really anywhere in Louisiana, or if you have driven through Louisiana, you are familiar with Gordon McKernan, even if the name doesn't ring a bell, because you have seen his billboards. He's a personal injury attorney and an all-around great guy and someone who I would consider a friend. And Gordon stopped by my radio show on Thursday, and Gordon's a busy guy to track down because in addition to running a gigantic law firm, he's also he's traveling all the time. On this particular day, he was playing in a golf tournament in Texas, flew back to Louisiana just in time to be on my radio show. And we spent a good half an hour together talking about everything that's transpired over the last week and a half. So what I figured I'd do here is cut out the sound bites that I think you would find most relevant from his thoughts on firing Brian Kelly. Yes, Gordon was one of the select few at the governor's mansion meeting with Jeff Landry the day Brian Kelly was fired in that buyout meeting. You're going to hear some of the details of that meeting. His thoughts on firing Scott Woodward, hiring Verge Ausberry, new president Wade Roos, stepping in a little bit. By the way, Gordon served on a committee, a transitional committee for the governor with Wade Roos. So you're going to hear that. And who Gordon thinks should be LSU's next football coach. You're going to hear all that. But let's kind of go chronologically, and we'll start with the reaction to Brian Kelly's fire.
Well, I think it needed to happen. We were losing money either way, right? The one way we're losing money on the field with Brian Kelly and all those things. The other way we're losing money doing the buyout. But the brand was getting damaged. You could feel it, right? Being in the stadium, talking to people. He wasn't as committed. My players, at least, were telling the guys on my team, would tell me, I don't really know him. He doesn't spend time with us. So there was damage to the football brand, which then damages the LSU brand. And I think that's what happened on that Saturday night when we come in here and they came in here and just whipped us. And you're seeing empty suites, empty seats. There's no energy there. And it looked like BK didn't care. And I think he had just kind of checked out, and he's got his paycheck. And you can't have someone who's not motivated. I was telling someone the other day, Saban had to win. He couldn't lose. BK didn't have to win. It was nice if he won, right? But think about it. Think about the intensity and the difference that you see time in, time out. And that was the difference. I think everybody finally came to that conclusion, said, we can't do this any longer.
I think a few things strike me there. I think a lot of what Gordon said, a lot of those sentiments are echoed by a lot of the fans. But you heard him say the reaction in the stadium, there were empty seats, empty suites, and got to the realization we couldn't do this any longer. That was, again, a reactionary stance after the Texas A&M game, and really a half of football. Remember, you were winning 18-14 at the half of that football game, and it all unraveled. But what it speaks to is something that our everydayers and shout out have heard me say before here, which is when push came to shove, and there was that ugly game, that ugly half against Texas A&M, and people started having that conversation that Gordon's telling you there, and Brian Kelly just didn't have any allies. And Gordon is kind of telling you that because he's one of those guys. He's one of those guys that writes gigantic checks. Listen, to put into context, LSU's collective had going into this season, $3 million donors. I'm just talking about the collective. I'm not talking about Taft. I'm not talking about everything else. I'm just talking about the collective. Before this season, prior to this whole push this year, there were $3 million donors in the early goings of this collective. And it was Gordon, Holden Spate, and Todd Graves. So you're talking about a guy that is very generous and very plugged in and does a lot of NIL deals. And he's one of those who's kind of sharing the sentiment of a lot of people like Gordon who contribute a lot of money to this program. And Brian Kelly lost his allies. Now, I have also said that, well, first of all, I think you heard Gordon compare Brian Kelly to Nick Saban. Saban had to win. Well, that's what made Saban the greatest coach of all time. He probably hated to lose more than he loved to win. And that's not normal. Nick Saban's not normal. And it's unfortunate that he's the standard by which everyone is judged, but he is the standard. And he is the standard by which everyone is judged, good, bad, right, or wrong. Now, it is fair to mention also that on Thursday, Brian Kelly, for the first time since his firing, did in fact issue a statement across his social media, and I'll put it on the screen for those watching. If you're listening, I'll read through it for you here. But Brian Kelly's statement read, "Moving to Baton Rouge 4 years ago, my family and I were clear. There would be no halfway. We would be all in for LSU and for Louisiana. This journey began with great expectations, with my own vision of how to get there. Sometimes the journey does not end the way we hope. But when I think of our time together, I will remember and appreciate what we did accomplish. All of the exceptional student athletes I had the privilege to coach, a Heisman Trophy winner and more than a dozen Tigers playing on Sundays, 39 players earning SEC academic honor roll honors in 2024 alone, my daughter and son earning advanced degrees from LSU, and a third who began his career working at the university. The roar of Death Valley when we beat Alabama. The losses will always hurt, but I will remember all of the wins. I don't need to tell any of you how special Saturday nights in Tiger Stadium are. I'm honored to have worn the purple and gold and been a part of it. As everyone heads on their way to see the Tigers play, I wish Coach Wilson, the coaches, and our players the best this weekend. I know they will do their best for themselves and for LSU. We will be watching and cheering for you. The journey may have ended, but it's a journey that will stay with me and my family forever. Go Tigers, Brian Kelly." I think those are wonderful sentiments shared by Brian Kelly, and I've made no secret that I enjoyed covering Brian Kelly on a personal level during his 4 years in Baton Rouge. I know his reputation is what it is. I think as maybe the most impactful part, pertinent part of that statement was where he said, the journey began with great expectations, with my own vision of how to get there. Sometimes the journey does not end the way we hope. I think his vision is something that might have worked in a different era. But Brian Kelly got to LSU in late 2021 as NIL was rounding into form, and we saw the evolution of NIL, which became straight pay for play. It was a dramatically different way to build and maintain a roster, and it's something I don't think Brian Kelly kept up with and probably didn't have the desire to keep up with, as you heard Gordon McKernan say there. But Gordon had a lot of other thoughts. Brian Kelly was fired, and from there, the governor started to intervene, and Gordon was part of that. You'll hear those conversations next. Locked on LSU, your team every day. It's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered most, so let's break it down. Here in LSU's open date, let's just give a hat tip to Coach Frank Wilson, who's delivered in a big way for the Tigers. And just like Coach Wilson delivered for LSU during this bye week in this transition, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season long, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through 11/18. So after Brian Kelly was fired, there was a meeting at the governor's mansion that Sunday. The governor was obviously there. And Gordon McKernan was one of the people there as well, as Gordon offered and disclosed here in this interview. So he and I got into an exchange about the governor, about the meeting that Sunday at the governor's mansion. and Brian Kelly's buyout.
The first thing is that the governor wasn't involved in the firing, right? He didn't say, we got to go fire him, because that had already happened that morning to Scott and Coach Kelly's meeting. This was about, where are we? All right, he had legal there, he had athletics there. He was just trying to get brought up to speed on where are we? What can we do? What are we going to do with the buyout? Should we buy it out now? Do we just kind of put it over there? What about our new coach? So it was very much an information gathering session, and the governor is very good at probing and asking questions and getting information back. So that's what it really was, is a question and answer. Let's assess where we are. Let's make some good decisions. And that's pretty much the overall theme of that.
Can you give us any insight into the buyout talks? Because there's been a lot of information. I asked the governor this a week ago, and he shed some light. He said, they hadn't reached an agreement. There wasn't one person who agreed to pay the whole thing. I think there had been some of that.
Yeah.
Like he said in front of the show, so what? Where are things with that as best as you know?
Yeah, so any contract, right? So if I hire you, right, and I say, all right, Matt, I want to hire you for the next year to do 12 shows, and here's what I'm going to pay you. We sign it and I agree to it. And then 6 shows in, I go, well, no, it's really not working for me, but I'm going to continue to pay you every show for the next 6 months, right? I can do that, but we might come back and try to buy you out for a little less without you having to do everything. And I think that's what's being explored right now. The option to reduce the payment is still there, but the option just to pay Coach Kelly out under the next 6 years is still there as well. So they're not rushing. And I appreciate they're being very deliberate in how they're approaching this. And these coaches want that big paycheck right away. And I kind of like it. I kind of like no, we're going to take our time. We're going to figure this out, and you'll see what happens later. And that's uncertainty. And anytime in negotiations, you don't want uncertainty on your side.
It's brilliant advice from a master negotiator there about uncertainty. But I think the analogy I've given that might make sense in how this goes. It's like if you win the lottery, you can take the lump sum or you can take an annuity. The lump sum would be you get paid a lesser amount, but you get it all at once. Or you could take the annuity, which is you pay the entire amount over the duration of your life. Most lottery winners take the lump sum payment. A little bit less, but they take the lump sum payment to get it all now. So that's kind of what Brian Kelly is saying. He might be willing to take less for the lump sum now, but how much less? Now, what I was told is that LSU did make an offer for a lump sum payment. I was told it was 2 lump sum payments for Brian Kelly, and he rejected it. The number was too low. So LSU will keep paying him $800,000 a month, which is certainly well within the budget for LSU to be able to do. They were already budgeting for it to begin with. And in the meantime, it gives them time. And maybe if Brian Kelly is hired as a coach for next season, or of course, if he goes on to do TV, his contract is mitigated by whatever he might make at his next job. So another reason why it might behoove Brian Kelly to take a lesser dollar amount there, because that contract could continue to be lessened by whatever money he makes in the future. So just something to consider as it sort of moves forward. Now, the other piece of that meeting at the governor's mansion, of course, had to do with Scott Woodward, because just a few days later is when Governor Jeff Landry definitively said in that press conference that Scott Woodward would not be hiring the next coach at LSU. And we know what transpired. That was Wednesday. By Thursday night, Scott Woodward and LSU had mutually agreed to part ways. And Gordon discloses here that he and Scott Woodward have been friends for 50 years. And this is a move to force out Scott Woodward that he didn't agree with.
Yeah, I'm sad about it. I expressed my concerns to the governor on it. I think Scott Woodward's a great person, a man of integrity, a man of honor, and I think he was really good at his job. I mean, the 6 championships, the hiring of Brian Kelly, and that day during the meeting, it was reset for the governor, was not Scott Woodward alone. I mean, there was a search committee. There was multiple people involved recommending to the board, and Scott was just carrying out what the board's directive was, right? So we're down to these 3. Here's what we can do. What do you want me to do type thing. Scott, go pursue this person. So he goes and pursues and works the best deal he can, which he brings back to the board, which is a unanimous vote to hire Brian Kelly. At that time, he's the winningest coach in Notre Dame history. And everybody at that time thought it was a coup. How could we get Brian Kelly from Notre Dame, right? It just didn't work, right? It wasn't Scott's fault. In my opinion, just Brian Kelly wasn't the right guy for this place, whether it's lack of culture, lack of fit, lack of passion, whatever it was. He just wasn't. But to put this all at his feet, I think was wrong, and I've told the governor that. I respect the governor in how he sees it. They had a little headbutt, he and Scott. He would acknowledge that. They didn't see eye to eye on several things, and I understand why he felt he had to do what he had to do. But Scott's been a 50-year friend. I love him. I care for him. Wish him nothing but the best in the next part of his life.
So there's certainly personal feelings there for Gordon, as he acknowledged at the end that he's friends with Scott Woodward. But I wanted to play that full clip because I thought the disclosure there about how the Brian Kelly hiring came to pass is something I hadn't heard yet, but it does illustrate. Now, athletic directors get all of the blame or all of the credit when it comes to their hirings. So, but in that instance, Gordon is telling you it wasn't Scott acting singularly. The committee narrowed down their choices. The board said, go hire Brian Kelly and bring us the best deal. Scott Woodward brings a deal. The board unanimously approves it. So it's all these things that happen in tandem, and it's what it is. And again, the athletic director gets the credit of the blame. It's just the way that it manages to work out. And ultimately, that's how you maintain or lose job security, as we've seen here. But it was the impetus for the governor to move on Scott Woodward. And you heard Gordon there also allude to the fact that there were other things where Scott Woodward and the governor didn't see eye to eye. And that's unfortunate. It's, there's really, there's three strikes that worked against Scott Woodward. Like we've talked about, it was the governor is a Republican and Scott's a Democrat. There was the issue with Scott Woodward in no uncertain terms, mentioned the governor, kind of called out the governor whenever there was the women's basketball team was not on the floor for the national anthem, that thing a couple of years ago. And the governor wanted the women's team out there, the basketball team out there for the anthem. And Scott sort of took an opposite position to the governor, and then sort of defending Kim Mulkey and the players. And then there was the situation, as we've described, with Will Wade and Lee Mallett, and wanting Scott to fire Matt McMahon and rehire Will Wade, something he refused to do. So it was sort of a three strikes, you're out type situation in the eyes of the governor, and he was going to move on Scott Woodward, and ultimately got his way, despite the objection of successful, logical people like Gordon McKernan there. Well, now LSU has moved on, and Thursday was an important day because LSU did definitively announce that Verge Ausberry is the full-time athletic director with no ambiguity, no interim tag, no acting athletic director. It is Verge Ausberry's job. Gordon McKernan reacted to Verge Ausberry, the misstep by Wade Roos, and who he wants to see as LSU's next football coach. You'll hear that next. Locked on LSU, your team every day. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with SupplyHouse. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Need parts fast for a project? SupplyHouse has next-day delivery. Talk about a game changer. And join the free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit SupplyHouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. That's SupplyHouse.com. Real people, real service. So LSU took a big step on Thursday with President Dr. Wade Roos announcing Verge Ausberry as the full-time athletic director. If you missed our previous episode, I would highly recommend you go check it out at louisianasports.net. We had an exclusive comment early in the day from the governor's office, later, from the president's office, then from the president's social media. They shared a photo of Dr. Roos and Verge Ausberry on the field at Tiger Stadium. Verge Ausberry issued a statement to LSU fans, sort of accepting the job and vowing to do his best to not let LSU down in this role as the athletic director. And you know my feelings on it. Verge Ausberry has served in LSU athletics for a quarter of a century and played at LSU, bleeds purple and gold. And I think sometimes the obvious choice is the obvious choice for a reason. Even when we may want to go out and see a national search, sometimes the answer is right in front of your face. In this case, is Verge Ausberry, and Gordon McKernan agreed.
I think it's great. Known Verge for a long time. He bleeds this school, right? Purple and gold. He's all in. He's really well respected, and your viewership may not understand how well respected he is nationally in football circles. I've had a couple of national reporters who call me from time to time, reach out, and they're like, this was a good hire. Let me tell you, the coaches and the agents of the coaches liked it, and they see there's more stability immediately. They trust Verge, and if he's recruiting them, they can believe him. So I think quickly to hire him was a great decision. I think he's going to do good things for the university. He's all in. Everybody loves him. I think it'd be great.
The coaches and the agents of the coaches respect Verge. You hear that? The coaches and the agents of the coaches respect Verge. Well, who are the ones having the conversations during this coach hiring process? What's the coaches and the agents of the coaches? And if they know and respect Verge Ausberry, then they're going to take the call out of respect, courtesy. They're going to engage in conversations and fair negotiations. It puts yourself in a position to negotiate the best deal with the best candidate to bring them to LSU. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Verge Ausberry is supremely qualified to do this job. He knows everything about LSU athletics. Most people are aware of Verge having played at LSU and handling football scheduling as a primary role, but that's only a part of what Verge has done. He has been on search committees to hire coaches in all sports. He has worked in different entities. He worked 25 years ago with Scott Woodward as that governmental liaison. So Verge has been around. He knows the boosters. He knows the people in the state of Louisiana. He knows the politicians. He knows all of the administrators. He knows the higher eds. He knows the coaches. He knows the agents. He knows everybody involved here. He is again, supremely qualified person to run the LSU athletics department. And there you just got a cosign from Gordon McKernan, a very powerful booster. Frank Wilson, Kim Mulkey, we played their comments on Verge Ausberry earlier in the week. There is sort of a unanimous feeling here that LSU made the right hire here with Verge Ausberry. So it was Dr. Wade Roos who ultimately decided to remove the interim tag on Verge, but it wasn't without a misstep, as we saw this week, where Dr. Roos was confirmed as the new president on Tuesday. Tuesday night, he removed the interim tag. Wednesday is when he used the term acting athletic director and created a lot of ambiguity. As we've said, I respect tremendously the humility to acknowledge he made a mistake in the way he worded things, probably should have had a better answer prepared or just deflected it, but ultimately they got it right. Now, something I didn't know that Gordon McKernan disclosed is that when Governor Landry was elected, Gordon was chosen part of the transition committee on the education committee. Also serving on that committee, in addition to Scott Ballard, president of the LSU Board of Supervisors, was McNeese State President Dr. Wade Roos, who's now the LSU system president. Gordon shared his experience meeting Wade Roos.
I found him to be very open. I found him to be warm. I found him to be just a good guy. I mean, just a guy you'd say, yeah, I like him. And he's very, very smart. So I think LSU got a great hire. I think the governor was smart and hired him. Someone from here, from McNeese over there. I think it's a good thing. I think he's going to do a good job. Now, obviously, nothing's perfect this side of heaven, right? Yeah. And a little handoff of the baton between the board, Verge, him, however it happened. And you hate to see those things, but that's going to wash away a couple days. No one will be thinking about that. They'll be thinking about Alabama. Yeah. Did we beat them? Did we not beat them? And who's our coach?
If you want my full thoughts on what happened with LSU, with Dr. Wade Roos, and all of that with Verge, on again, off again, you can catch our prior episodes on podcast or YouTube, however you're listening to or watching the show. But the bottom line is it was a misstep. It was unfortunate. I think Dr. Wade Roos got a pretty rude awakening into the spotlight, the magnifying glass that's shown upon him now as the LSU system president, as opposed to being at McNeese. And of course, whenever he makes a foray into athletics at LSU, it's a pressure cooker, and a lot of people are paying attention. A tough lesson to learn the way that he did, but hopefully he'll be better for it. And all the wonderful things that Gordon said there will allow him to lead the university in a very positive manner. So, I also mentioned who's going to be the next coach. Well, Gordon gave his take.
I kind of get caught up in the Lane Kiffin thing and just go, wow. What would that be like?
Yeah.
Just the whole show, the energy, the play calling, all of it. It would just be, I can't use the word, though. It could be a blank show or it could be just the show, right? You don't know, but, man.
Please don't say.
I can't say that, the blank show or the show, but it would be, just when you watch the guy, there's just something different. He relates to the present culture of athletes, right? Yeah. He's the master on social media. He can recruit. He can obviously call. People want to go play for him right now. He's dynamic, all those things. And watching a little show, and apparently he's kind of cleaned up his life. Yeah. He quit drinking. He's more spiritual, some of those things that I respect. So that's kind of where I fall, but, not my money.
It might be something.
It might be.
It might very well be some of Gordon's money. Throw one notch in the Lane Kiffin column from Gordon McKernan. Really good conversation. If you want to hear the entirety of that conversation, podcast YouTube, you can search After Further Review. That's my radio show. You can catch that entire interview with Gordon. In the meantime, we're glad to have you aboard with us here each and every single day, and we appreciate Gordon for making the time. A transformative time in LSU athletics, and we're here with you every single day on Locked on LSU. Hey, thanks so much for making us your first listen. If you're on podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Rate us, leave a review. If you're on YouTube, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video, and be sure to let a friend know that if they love the Tigers, we got you here every single day for Locked on LSU, your team every day.